Did you know that over 27,000 people in Texas are already homeless, and that number could explode in 2025? A new law has just passed that many experts say could make the housing crisis even worse. Families living paycheck to paycheck, seniors on fixed incomes, even single parents doing everything right. This law could push them onto the streets faster than anyone expected. Imagine losing your home not because you lost your job, but because the law made it easier for your landlord to kick you out. No safety net, no protection, just a few missed payments, a quick court order, and suddenly you and your kids are out on the curb with nowhere to go. Sounds extreme, right? But for thousands of Texans, this could become reality very soon. In this video, we're breaking down the top 10 reasons why this law could lead to mass homelessness in Texas, and you won't believe what made it to number 1. Number 1. No statewide rent control or cap. Texas is one of the few states in the U.S. with no rent control laws whatsoever. That means landlords can legally raise your rent as much as they want, whenever they want, with little to no notice. In 2025, the new legislation reinforces this policy, even stripping some cities of the power to enforce their own rent caps. So if you're paying $900 this month, don't be surprised if your lease renewal suddenly jumps to $1,500 or more. And with wages barely increasing, especially for low-income workers, this creates a perfect storm. Rent spikes are happening faster than people can adjust their budgets, and the result? Thousands are being priced out of their home. What makes this worse is how quickly these changes can hit. One month you're barely making ends meet, and the next you're facing a 40% rent increase with no warning. There's no buffer, no grace period, and often, no legal recourse. Families are forced to choose between paying for rent or putting food on the table. Seniors living on fixed incomes, already one of the most vulnerable groups, have nowhere to go when their rent shoots up overnight. And let's be honest, finding a new place to live in this market isn't just difficult, it's almost impossible if you're not wealthy. The sad reality? When people say homelessness is a choice, they're ignoring the math. This law isn't just about housing policy. It's about who gets to stay and who gets left behind. And in 2025, without rent control, the scale is tipping fast, and it's everyday Texans who will pay the price. Number 2. Gentrification-driven homelessness. Gentrification isn't new, but this new Texas law is about to supercharge it. By loosening zoning restrictions and fast-tracking permits for developers, the law opens the floodgates for high-end apartment complexes, luxury condos, and trendy commercial spaces. Sounds like economic growth, right? But here's the hidden cost. Longtime residents in working-class neighborhoods are getting pushed out. As property values skyrocket, so do taxes and rents, and those who've lived in these communities for generations can no longer afford to stay. What makes this especially devastating is that the law offers zero protections for those affected by this shift. There's no relocation assistance, no rent stabilization, and no guarantees that affordable housing will be replaced. Developers are buying out entire blocks, offering landlords cash incentives to clear out low-income tenants. And once the new buildings go up, the people who built the culture of these neighborhoods are gone, replaced by wealthier outsiders who can afford the inflated costs. It's not just about buildings changing, it's lives being uprooted. The communities hit hardest, often Black, Latino, and immigrant neighborhoods, places already struggling with underfunding and systemic inequality. This isn't just urban development. It's a silent eviction wrapped in a shiny real estate package. And under this new law, there's nothing to stop it. The pace of gentrification is speeding up, and more families are finding themselves caught in a cycle, priced out, displaced, and eventually left without shelter. If you've ever wondered how homelessness starts in a booming area, this is it. Number 3. Impact on formerly incarcerated individuals. Under the new Texas law, people with criminal records, regardless of the offense or how long ago it happened, can be legally denied housing, even in public or subsidized units. This might sound like a measure to protect communities, but in reality, it's creating a revolving door between prison and homelessness. Individuals who've served their time and are trying to rebuild their lives are being locked out of stable housing before they even get a chance to start over. Imagine being released from prison, determined to get a job, stay clean, and reunite with your family, but every rental application gets denied because of something you did 10 or 20 years ago. Employers may be willing to give you a second chance, but landlords? Not under this law. Even non-violent or minor offenses can lead to automatic disqualification. And with Texas already having one of the highest incarceration rates in the country, this means tens of thousands are at risk of being homeless the moment they walk free. The impact is generational. Without stable housing, people are more likely to return to crime, not because they want to, but because they're desperate to survive. Children of formerly incarcerated parents suffer too, constantly moving, living in shelters, or separated from their families altogether. Rehabilitation means nothing without a place to live, and this law strips that foundation away. It's not just a housing issue, it's a justice issue, and it's making it harder for people to break the cycle of poverty and incarceration. Under this system, freedom doesn't come with opportunity, it comes with a locked door. Number 4. Cuts to affordable housing programs. One of the most alarming parts of the new law is its massive reduction in funding for affordable housing programs. These programs are often the only safety net for low-income families, seniors, and people with disabilities. But now, key initiatives that supported the development of low-cost housing units are being slashed or eliminated entirely. With fewer subsidies and tax incentives, developers have little reason to build anything other than high-profit, market-rate apartments. To make matters worse, Texas already faces a huge shortage of affordable housing. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, the state is short by over 600,000 affordable rental homes for those living at or below the poverty line. That number is only going to grow now that the state is pulling back on the very programs meant to close the gap. And with rising construction costs, developers say they can't build low-income units without government support, meaning we're heading into a deeper crisis with no clear way out. The result? Thousands of people on waiting lists for housing assistance will simply be left out in the cold, literally. Families who depend on housing vouchers may lose them or find that there's no available housing that will accept them. Shelters will fill up faster. Tents will pop up under more bridges. And all of this isn't just theoretical. It's already happening in cities like Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. By cutting funding now, the state isn't saving money. It's creating a long-term disaster, one that will cost more in emergency services, hospital visits, and human suffering than any budget ever saved. Number 5. Stricter public assistance requirements. The new Texas law also brings tougher eligibility rules for public assistance programs, including housing vouchers, SNAP benefits, and emergency rental aid. What used to be lifelines for struggling families are now buried under layers of red tape, longer wait times, and tighter restrictions. Applicants are being turned away not because they don't need help, but because they can't meet new requirements that feel designed to exclude rather than support. For example, many low-income families now have to prove more frequent work hours or submit extensive documentation just to qualify for basic aid. But what if you're a single parent working multiple part-time jobs with no benefits, or someone recovering from surgery? These new rules ignore the realities of people's lives. And once someone is denied assistance, it's not just an inconvenience. It can mean missing rent, losing housing, or going hungry. Instead of a safety net, what we're seeing is more like a trapdoor. Experts warn this shift could hit the most vulnerable Texans hardest, especially children, the elderly, and the disabled. Without stable support, families teeter on the edge of homelessness, with no room for mistakes. A missed paycheck or a sudden car repair can now trigger a downward spiral that was preventable just months ago. And once you fall behind, it's nearly impossible to catch up without assistance. Cutting access to these programs doesn't make people more independent, it makes them more desperate. This law doesn't just tighten qualifications, it tightens the noose around families already fighting to survive. If this video opened your eyes, drop a comment below. Not just a thought, but a voice that deserves to be heard. We pour hours into making these for you, so if you found value, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 6. Displacement from rapid urban development. Texas is growing fast. Really fast. Major cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston are expanding at record speed, and this new law is only accelerating that growth. On paper, that sounds like progress. But what's often left out is the cost of that progress. Families being pushed out of their homes to make room for upscale apartments, tech campuses, and trendy new developments. With the law now allowing faster rezoning and weaker protections for tenants, entire communities are being erased, block by block. Developers are snatching up land in traditionally affordable neighborhoods, and under the new legislation, they no longer have to include any affordable housing units in their plans. That means families who've lived in the same area for decades are being forced to leave, not because they want to, but because they simply can't afford to stay. And it happens fast. A notice goes up, the rent doubles, and just like that, a working-class community turns into a luxury zip code overnight. There's no time to adjust, no time to fight back. This isn't just a housing issue, it's an identity crisis. Local businesses close, schools lose students, and the culture of the neighborhood disappears. The law may call it urban development, but for thousands of Texans, it feels more like urban displacement. And once people are pushed out, where do they go? Often, it's to the edges of the city or into homelessness. This kind of unchecked development doesn't build stronger cities. It builds walls around who gets to live in them. Number 7. Targeting of mobile homes and RV dwellers. For many low-income Texans, mobile homes and RVs are not just vehicles or temporary shelters. They're home. But under the new law, changes to zoning regulations and property codes are making it nearly impossible for people to legally live in these affordable alternatives. Local governments are now empowered to crack down on mobile home parks, and private landowners face new restrictions that make it illegal to park or live in RVs long-term, even on their own land. This hits hardest in rural areas and the outskirts of cities, where thousands of families have carved out a living in modest homes on wheels. These communities are often made up of working-class individuals, veterans, retirees, and even young families trying to escape the crushing cost of traditional rent. Now, they're being told their homes aren't up to code, or worse, being given eviction notices with nowhere to go. It's not just displacement, it's erasure of an entire way of life. And here's the truth, these homes aren't unsafe. In many cases, they're clean, stable, and far more secure than couch surfing or sleeping in a car. But under this new law, affordability is being treated like a violation, not a solution. If your home doesn't fit into the state's narrow definition of permanent housing, you're suddenly an outsider. For those already struggling, this isn't just another barrier, it's the last straw. When you make the cheapest housing option illegal, you're not solving homelessness, you're manufacturing it. Number 8. Reduced tenant protections. Before this new law passed, some Texas cities had local ordinances in place that offered basic protections for renters, things like requiring notice before eviction, setting limits on late fees, or offering grace periods for missed payments. But now, those local safeguards have been wiped out. The state law overrides many of these tenant-friendly policies, leaving renters with fewer rights and less time to react if something goes wrong. Imagine getting a notice to vacate after just a few days of missed rent. No warnings, no flexibility, no room to catch up. That's what's happening. Under the new regulations, landlords have more power than ever to evict tenants quickly and aggressively, often without any real oversight. And because renters now have limited access to legal assistance, many don't even know their rights, or that they've been taken away. It's a system that favors speed over fairness and profit over people. This shift is especially dangerous for low-income families, who are more likely to live paycheck to paycheck. A medical emergency, a car breakdown, or even a delayed paycheck can now spiral into immediate eviction, with no safety net. What's worse, this law also weakens protections against retaliatory evictions. So if a tenant complains about unsafe living conditions, they can be legally kicked out for making noise. These protections weren't just legal fine print. They were the only things standing between stability and the street. Now that they're gone, thousands of renters are living one emergency away from homelessness. Number 9. Criminalization of homelessness. Instead of addressing the root causes of homelessness, like poverty, mental health, and lack of affordable housing, this new Texas law takes a punitive approach. It empowers cities to fine, ticket, and even arrest people simply for sleeping in public space. That includes sidewalks, parks, underpasses, anywhere that isn't a designated shelter. But here's the catch. Shelters are already overcrowded, underfunded, and often turn people away due to lack of space. So where exactly are people supposed to go? This law doesn't just criminalize homelessness, it criminalizes survival. People trying to stay warm under a blanket or seeking shade during the Texas summer are being treated like criminals. In some cities, just having a tent can lead to fines of hundreds of dollars. And if someone can't pay those fines, they could face jail time. That means we're spending taxpayer money to punish people for being poor, rather than investing in the services that could help lift them out of poverty in the first place. The long-term effects are devastating. A criminal record makes it nearly impossible to get a job or housing, creating a vicious cycle where people are trapped on the streets. For families, this means children grow up in constant instability. For veterans and people with mental illness, it means being shuffled between the streets and jail with no real help in between. By criminalizing homelessness, This law turns a humanitarian crisis into a legal one, and the people suffering the most are those with the fewest resources to fight back. In 2025, being homeless in Texas isn't just hard, it's illegal. Number 10. Rising eviction rates tied to law changes. Since the new law took effect, Texas has already seen a sharp rise in eviction filings, especially in major urban areas like Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. With the legal process now tilted more heavily in favor of landlords, tenants are losing their homes for reasons that would have once been disputed or negotiated. In many cases, tenants are being evicted for minor lease violations or a single late payment, with little to no opportunity to explain their circumstances or catch up. Courts are moving faster, and tenants are being left behind, literally. This isn't just about numbers, it's about real people. Single mothers working 2 jobs, elderly renters living on fixed incomes, college students juggling tuition and rent. These are the faces behind the statistics. And the worst part, once you're evicted, it becomes much harder to find new housing. Landlords can legally deny you based on your eviction history, no matter how small the offense. So one bump in the road can easily turn into long-term housing instability. Housing advocates say this law has created a landlord's market, where even responsible tenants can be removed at will. With no rent control and weaker tenant protections, landlords have more power than ever to raise rents, push people out, and bring in higher-paying tenants. It's a cycle of displacement that starts with an eviction notice and ends with a sleeping bag on the street. Evictions aren't just a symptom of homelessness. They're now a major cause. And unless this law is reevaluated, the trend is only going to get worse in the months ahead. This new Texas law isn't just another line of legislation. It's a turning point. It doesn't only affect policy on paper. It reshapes real lives. From rising evictions to the criminalization of homelessness, from cutting public aid to dismantling tenant protections, this law isn't solving the housing crisis. It's fueling it. And the most painful part? The people paying the price are the ones who can afford it the least. Working-class families, single parents, veterans, the elderly, and the already unhoused. We often think of homelessness as something that happens to other people. But the truth is, for many Texans, it's one missed paycheck, one medical emergency, or one rent hike away. The changes in this law don't just threaten the vulnerable. They push everyday people into vulnerability. It's not just about housing. It's about dignity, security, and the right to live without fear of being thrown out of your home for circumstances you can't control. So as we close out this video, the biggest takeaway is simple. Homelessness isn't a moral failure, it's a policy choice. And unless we question those policies and speak up, the crisis will only deepen. We hope this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what's happening, not just in headlines, but in people's homes, streets, and lives. If it did, scroll down and join the conversation in the comments. What changes do you think Texas needs most? What part of this law surprised or angered you the most? Your voice matters, and together, awareness can lead to action.